Well, hey y'all. Welcome back to episode 2 of Stream of Consciousness. If you caught the first episode, if this is your first episode, then welcome to the channel. I actually just filmed an episode after I went on a run today. And I went home and I thought about it as I was showering, and I don't know that I liked the energy that I was bringing. I think I still had my blood pumping a little bit from the run. And I don't know, I was just talking a little, I don't know. I was talking my stuff a little too much. And not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. I didn't like the way it came out. And I know that it's stream of consciousness and it's supposed to be unedited and just, as you are. And I still want it to be as I am. I just didn't like the energy that I was bringing. I can still bring up the same points and topics that I was talking on. It just seemed very much like I was criticizing, and I am. Let's get it straight. I am criticizing. I'm being judgmental. But I felt that in the first video it could be misconstrued that I was being judgmental towards other people, and that's not necessarily the case. I do judge other people, I just don't do it on video. So really what my intention was to criticize behaviors and behavior patterns that I either feel like I'm currently aligning with that are not good, or ones that I had noticed in the past and have since changed. So really it all comes from criticisms of either a past version of myself or a current version of myself that I'm working to change. They say if you notice something that bothers you, chances are you notice it because you notice it somewhere within yourself. So at the end of the day, most of the things I'm criticizing are either things I still struggle with or things that I have struggled with. I'd like to get that out of the way. I'd like to get out of the way, there is part of me that doesn't like that I'm re-recording the episode, especially because I was talking to my mom earlier this week, and she was like, people only share the parts of them that they want people to see online. And I really don't want to be that guy. That's only putting a certain version of themselves on the internet. But in this instance, I will change it because overall I thought the energy that I was bringing was negative. So I don't want to put negative energy out there. For that reason, I will change it. But I won't change it in the sense of the stories that I'll talk about. I try to be as transparent and vulnerable with, my situations and stories that I tell. I don't want to give you a certain version of things. I just want to give you the baseline truth of either a story that happened or what I believe, and just allow that to be. But I don't want to contribute any negativity, so I will be most likely changing it. There is a chance that original video still comes out, but we will see. Enough of the yapping. I'm gonna start this episode by talking about, I guess this could contribute towards some sort of a gratitude checkpoint here. Yesterday was the 4th of July, and while I don't believe that we or any country is perfect, I do feel extremely blessed to be an American. I feel extremely passionately about this country. I do think that even if you don't believe that we are the best country right now, we have the potential to be the best country in the world. I'm extremely blessed that I get to live in America, where I can go out and pursue my passions, where I can go talk to people and talk freely to people, where there's such a diversity. Anybody on any corner of the earth can come to America and be an American, and that, I think, is a beautiful thing. The landscapes that I've seen in the U.S., awesome. Now, I haven't been to, like, you know, some other places, so I'm sure there's some real breathtaking countries out there, but man, we sure live in a pretty breathtaking one as well. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of bad stuff I can focus on, but I'm just really appreciative to have the freedoms that I have, the scenery that we have, and I'm pretty grateful for the people. You know, overall, you know, I think the powers that be have a plan to divide us all and to keep us all separate, and not realizing that we are all one and the same. But, you know, I think overall, when you go outside and you're interacting with people in real life, not on the phones, in real life talking to people, overall people are good. You know, people are good. They act out of pocket when they get online, and you know, it's a lot of people that just, yeah. So I don't know, but overall, I think people are good when you go outside and you talk to people and you learn other perspectives. There's a lot of good out here, man. There's a lot of good. It's the social media. You know, once they find your algorithm gets you watching negative stuff, you know, they're fighting for your attention. That's their currency, is your attention. The 24-hour news cycle, the news didn't used to be 24 hours. Now it's 24 hours of just nothing good. Just nothing good. Something for you to fight about with somebody else. That's it. You know, don't buy into all of that too much. I understand it's going on, and you know, it sucks, but at the end of the day, man, like, I'm not Superman, you're not Superman. There's not like a whole lot we can do for some of these things, but you know, while you're sitting there complaining about something that you've got zero power over, you know, you could be taking that same energy and that same passion to try to make things better, and look around in your community and just start there. You know, you don't have to start at the peak of the mountain. You can just start with where you're at. You know, I've been trying this thing recently where I try to hand out 3 compliments a day and have you know, as long of a conversation as I can with a stranger. And I think, you know, those are all things that they don't cost money. They take just a tiny little bit of your time and a little bit of effort, and that's it. But you don't know the ripple effect that one good deed or one positive interaction can have in the world. And that's where I choose to start. Not at the mountaintop, not, you know, doing this and that and the other. Just starting on the ground level. Starting where I can, where I feel like I can make a change. Because you know what doesn't feel like it makes a change to me? Just posting some nonsense on social media. Like, I understand you want people to be more aware, but it's like, it's almost like getting on CNN and listening to CNN tell you about how much of a bunch of idiots Fox News is, or Fox News getting on there and telling you how much of a bunch of idiots CNN has. Well, how many CNN viewers are watching Fox News to get another, like, side of the perspective or whatever? What I'm getting at is that these groups are just, they find their audience and they gravitate towards that. You posting something is either gonna make a scene and like cause like an argument or something, or it's just gonna be like-minded people who already believe the same amount of things as you, further, getting into that. What real change, what real contribution are you doing? And how many arguments online are you having that at the end of it, you feel like you shifted somebody's perspective? Like, probably not a lot. You're really wasting time. And there I go again, trying to be judgmental again. Again, I was 19 arguing with people on Facebook like my life depended on it. There's nothing more annoying. Go get a hobby, bro. Go golf or something. Take a cooking class. I don't know. But I think that's pretty much all I've got on that. One thing that I guess has kind of been stewing on my mind a little bit is the last episode, I had every reason to not do it. Oh, I don't have the right microphone piece, or, this, that, or the other, whatever it is, right? But when I went and posted it on Facebook, I said in the description that your need for perfection can hinder just progress or an initial start in general. And I think that is so true. And again, I'm just commenting on where I've been in life. Now I've always been interested in doing creative things, but now I know to start at the ground level. Just starting at the ground level is so important. Start where you're at and just see everything as improvement and getting better and practicing. I think when you prioritize improvement, the other things will come. And we'll get into that here in a minute. But, I do vividly remember, hanging out with my friends and always being like, oh, I want to make this, I want to make that. Not really making it, or anything that I made, I would just judge so harshly. Actually, a really good parallel here is a canon event for every dude right out of high school or in high school, kind of in that time frame, is getting together with your buddies and deciding that you're going to start a music group. I think that's a canon event. I think every dude has done that before. And I remember sitting there trying to write rap songs with my friends in an apartment one night. And just every little idea that we had, we would just be like, oh, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. And I vividly remember a friend of mine saying, I don't know, I just want my song to sound like Drake. Valid. We all want our song to sound like Drake. But I remember thinking, we've been trying this for all of 10 minutes. Our collective, rap career is 10 minutes long, and you want to sound like Drake, who's professionally done it for, we're creeping up on 20 years that homeboy has done it at a professional level, not including all the work that he put in beforehand, behind the scenes that you don't see. And in 10 minutes of doing something you've never done, never practiced, don't know anything about, you want to be the mountain peak. Bro, what? And we all had that mentality. So I'm not, it wasn't just one of us. It was all of us being impatient. And rather than saying, well, let me just keep at it and keep improving and taking those little improvements and letting them pile up over time. Impatience and the need for perfection killed the idea as a whole, killed our vibe, killed our momentum, killed everything. Your need for perfection will kill it. Which is why I've decided that when I'm working on a project, like a new joke, I will start where it's at. It might not be fully finished. Some jokes come to me and they're fully finished. Some jokes I just write down the idea and then I go figure it out later. Starting where you're at, not expecting for everything to be perfect and for you to go off without a hitch and never experience any feelings of embarrassment or feelings of failure. You know, everybody's too afraid of that. This leads into something else. You know, I see all these people posting, there's a clip of Austin Butler getting interviewed, and he's talking about how embarrassment is an underexplored emotion and people don't dive into that enough. And I think, especially in instances like that where you need something to be perfect before you try it, that is you saying, I'm afraid to put myself out there. I'm afraid to be embarrassed. I'm afraid for it to not work out. And it is a scary thing. It is a scary thing to take a chance on yourself and to say that, oh, well, maybe I'm capable of doing things I couldn't imagine. Or maybe I'm capable of doing things, that scare me. Whatever. I think that's really important to dive into stuff like that. And, just like the clip says, where he's like, lean into embarrassment. It's very similar. Embarrassment and excitement, are two very similar emotions. And sometimes the wires can get crossed. And when you do something that you find embarrassing, like say, it doesn't even have to be anything, crazy. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Say that, there's a street performer or something, and you're on a walk, or you're headed to dinner with your family downtown, whatever, and you see that street performer and you stop for a second and you dance for a song. And for one whole song, you really put everything else to the side and you just lock in and you dive into that song. Well, I think, should you be able to fully let go and not pay attention to embarrassment or how something might make you feel, you'll find a feeling of freedom on the other side of that, because nobody else is willing to go put themselves out, and do that. And after a minute, you're not going to be embarrassed by it. It's the same thing like with the first episode. I had the selfie stick, and I was so embarrassed to be walking around with this selfie stick, around this park. I didn't want people to see me like that. After the third person saw me, it was not a big deal. In fact, the episode I recorded that might not get put out, in that episode, there's 2 instances where I say hello to somebody as they're walking past me. So what I thought was not something I wanted to do, or what I thought was embarrassing one day, is now comfortable for me because I walked through it and I refused to let it get to me. And I think that's important. There's a lot of times in life where something either gets hard or the feelings get uncomfortable. Whatever the feeling is, embarrassment, frustration, struggle, whatever. Those feelings get too much, and rather than busting through them anyway, we turn around and we go back to what's comfortable. When I moved to Washington State, I moved on my 20th birthday. My mom and my brother drove me out to Las Vegas. They flew back to Indiana, and I drove up to Washington State. I was there for maybe a month, because I didn't know how to deal with those feelings. I got out there, the feelings of sadness, the feelings of struggle, the feelings of loneliness, all these things got to be too much for me instantly. I didn't know how to deal with any of it. And rather than learning how to deal with it and getting on the other side of it, I said, well, the job I have out here is pretty hard, but you know what? I bet I could go back to Chicago's, because Chicago's was comfortable for me. It was a struggle I knew. So I said, well, you know what? I bet I could go back there. I said, well, I'm having trouble making friends out here, but I know where my friends are at. I said, well, I'm having trouble figuring out how to do all this, living on your... I wasn't living on my own, I was living with my cousin, but still, first time moving out, and kind of having newfound responsibilities, didn't know how to deal with that. But I said, hey, you know what? You know where I don't have to deal with that? Back home. I said, it's the struggle that I know. It's comfortable. I can go back to it. And I know how to navigate those waters. But when you go back to the comfortable, and you go back to the waters you know how to navigate, I truly believe that you're not growing at a rate that you could be growing for sure, but in some instances you're not growing at all. I think I heard this quote that said, the mind seeks comfort, but the soul stirs for change. And then it says, later on it says, the very point of being alive, or the point of life is being alive. Yet we resist the very currents that bring us closer into that awareness of our aliveness. Which I think is a pretty profound quote there. And basically what I get from it is that, your soul does stir for change. Deep down in your heart, you might know that you're not living the life that you're wanting for yourself at the moment. And maybe you've spent 20 years building this life for yourself and you found out that it's not actually what you want. That's okay. It's okay. It's so cool to change. But it's not cool to just be like, I'll settle. You'll settle? For what? For what? Like, why would you settle for anything? Like, I personally believe that this life is like some sort of a gift, and I've had a few experiences in my life that have led me to believe that, there's something more than all of us. Whatever you want to call it, the universe, God, the collective consciousness, whatever. I'm not here to tell you what to believe, not my cup of tea. But whatever was here before us and whatever will be here after us, I think that this is a gift. And, I'll be darned if I waste it. Here recently, I've really kind of had things that have put into perspective the fragility of life to me. Last month I had 3 friends pass away from back home. And, that sucks, man. That sucks. I'm grateful for the times that I got with them. I'm grateful for the impact that they had on my lives and the lives of others. And, I hope I see them again. But it puts in perspective for you just how fragile life is. You could be here one day and you could be gone the next with no explanation. And too many of y'all are sleepwalking around life like it's guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed whatsoever. Let me tell you a story. Here's a story. There was a guy that got out of high school and he was told that the point of life was to go make some money. Right? Everybody told him, hey man, go make some money. When you're 63 years old, you'll retire. And then from 63 on, it's gonna be a good life, buddy. It's gonna suck. It's gonna suck every second until you hit 63. But man, when you can retire, you'll be perfect. You'll be perfect. It was actually a set of buddies that were sold this idea when they got out of school. Well, they both go out and do that. They take jobs that are miserable, that they know they hate, that they know don't fulfill them, that is only a paycheck, only to be able to afford these things in life. And they work at that and they say, well, this is good enough. This is good enough. Maybe I get a week off a year because the boss man tells me that that's what I can have. And, I get my one vacation a year and that's good enough for me. That's what I have to look forward to. And it's like, bro, hold on a second. You could be like really chasing life. But again, let's get back to the story. They go out and they do that. And they do that from the time they're 20 to the time they're 65. Wow, that's a long time. Hell, that's longer than they had been alive at that point. Pretty interesting that they would get themselves in a situation that they have to spend time in longer than they've even been alive. Very interesting. But they work their way up the company ladder. And, they do it. They retire. And you know what happens? The very next day, their jobs are replaced. In the grand scheme of the company, they meant nothing. They maybe meant something to the people they worked with, and maybe any customers or whatever they interacted with. Sure, but to the company, they meant nothing. They were replaced instantly. Well, right after retirement, guy number one dies. Well, that's interesting because guy number one spent his whole life thinking he had just made it to the mountain peak, baby. He had, quote unquote, sacrificed so much so that when he got to 65, he could retire. What do we say? He spent from 20 to 65 working? Okay. 45 years he worked with a promise that things were going to be better and that it was all going to be worth it when he retired. A week later, dies. I gotta keep this kid friendly. What a story, right? That should scare you. It scares me. It scares the heck out of me. Guy number two, okay, right? He does get to enjoy his retirement. You know what he enjoys in his retirement? Back pain. Yeah, good luck going on massive heights at 65. I'm not saying it's not possible. Back home, there's this guy, Larry Moffat. I mean, no offense to him. He's been old all my life. But he could outrun me any day of the week. He could outrun probably the whole town any day of the week. So, I mean, sure, unless I'm him, then I could maybe potentially, enjoy retirement at that age. But the idea of that scares me. The idea of not enjoying every single day, like truly not living it like, hey man, I could be up out of here tomorrow. It's not guaranteed. Like, how are people going about their lives acting like it's guaranteed and acting like like money or whatever is like the meaning to all this? Like, I don't know. I don't know the meaning of life, and I'm sure it's vastly different for everybody. And there are people that are probably fine with just clocking in for 40 years and then taking that retirement, and that's a good life for them. But for me, like, I'm excited to be here. I'm young, I'm healthy, I got minimal responsibilities, I got nothing tying me to any one spot. Like, that's exciting, man. That's really exciting. Like, that's what keeps my blood pumping, and that's what keeps me positive and happy and I don't know, just knowing that this isn't an end for me. Like, I don't hate my job that I have now, but I know I don't want to be there forever. But I know I won't be, because I refuse to allow myself to get stuck in situations like that. It hasn't always been that way, you know. I did work at a spot one time that I hated so much. And I mean, like, there was a combination of some things, but my mental health was not in the best spot, you know. It's the type that, you know, when you clock out, you go home and you just look at a fucking shotgun. Oh, I shouldn't say that. My bad. Look at a heckin' shotgun, you know, one of those sort of points in my life. And I knew I didn't like the job, and I knew I needed to get out. I knew I needed to, because I knew things weren't going to get better, and it was on its way down. But every time they offered me more money, I said, well, sure, you know. I don't know where I was going with that one, but don't do that. Don't sell out. Don't sell out for money. And if you do, sell out for money as long as you have to, and get the hell out. No water left in that. Let's see. Do I have anything else here, Jordan? Yeah, I think you should just really, like, dive into whatever, you know, whatever you're into, and just go head first, because, you know, we're very limited on the time that we did on this earth, and we're very blessed with a lot of the situations we have. And really, if y'all locked in, if any of us lock in for like a year, you can change your circumstances. Like, most of us. There's some people dealt a crappy hand of cards, and I did that, and that sucks. But everything is figure outable. You just have to be willing to put in work, and you have to be willing to change, and, you know, all these things. That being said, I think it's important to change along the way, you know. It's important to be, you know, it's fine to be headed this way and then say, oh, I don't like this way anymore. Bah, I'm gonna head this way. Bah, I'm gonna head that way. Bah, 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 bah. And, you know, along the way, there's gonna be people that know you for a certain version of you. And they're gonna, you know, want you to be that version of yourself. But if you're not that person anymore, don't be that. You know, that's fine. It's completely fine to change. And you know, if you lose people along the way because of that, or, you know, whatever sort of consequences may come from that, that's fine. That's okay. You know, the people that you might lose along the way, you're gonna gain some other people along the way. Whatever. There's a story that I like to come to whenever somebody's, you know, telling me something. Like, my grandma, for instance, sometimes, you know, she'll still tell me, she'll say, you know, hey, you know, it's not too late to sign up for college classes, you know, and it's not, and maybe life takes me down that path one day, but it's not right now, that's for sure, and it's not something that interests me. But, you know, she always said, you know, she said, well, you know, you were always a decently smart kid. You know, school was halfway easy for you when you applied yourself. Yeah, that's true, but school was also boring. You know, it doesn't interest me. I am interested in learning, but I'm interested in learning about things that I want to learn about. I don't know. Whatever, right? So she always thought I was going to be an engineer, because when I was a little baby, I would open and close doors and try to figure out how that was working. And I think I still have this curiosity, but, you know, I think she thought it was going to go a certain way. And, you know, she tells me sometimes, she'll say, you know, I always thought you were going to go to school to be an engineer, and once you get that engineering degree, you make big money and this and that and whatever. And you know, I think there's always going to be people in your life that are going to try to get you to be to align with who they want you to be, or you know, how they see you. And I'm not digging on my grandma because she's very supportive of the things that I do. She calls all the time, how'd the comedy show go, whatever. She just brings it up, and I understand it. But it kind of ties into this story I heard about Bob Dylan. Well, the story I heard was that, you know, Bob Dylan was making folk music, very big in folk music, had a lot of folk fans, had a lot of friends in folk music, had, you know, built this sort of expectation for himself. Well, then he decides that that's not exciting to him anymore. It's not what wakes him up in the morning. He wants to play rock music. But in the folk music community, they're not really vibing with that. They're like, hey man, folk music, you know, this is art. You know, we don't need the big amplifiers and the electric guitars and all that. You know, this is just about you, your song, and one guitar. And he said, well, you know, that's not what I'm about anymore. That's not like who I am anymore. I'm thankful for that part of my life. I'm happy for it. I'm glad it exists. I don't live there anymore. I've changed. I've moved on. If you guys are in the same spot, live there, be that. That's great. But don't expect me to live in the past with you. I'm moving. And I think that's super, super sexy. That's sexy. Wow, what a sexy guy. What a sexy man setting boundaries. I'm trying my impressions here. But they book him for this festival. He says, I'm not getting up there and playing Blowing in the Effing Wind. And they say, Bob, we really want you to play Blowing in the Wind. Everybody loves Blowing in the Wind. He said, I don't love Blowing in the Wind anymore. I loved it when I loved it, and now I don't. And that's fine. I'm pretty sure he did end up getting up there and playing folk music at some point, or maybe he went back out for the encore and played Blowing in the Wind. I'm not sure exactly how it went down. But what I do know is he said, I'm not doing that. He said, y'all can book me for where I'm at now, or you can just not have me. And I think that's baller. That's so baller. I say that to say he gets up there, plugs in his amps, plays his electric music, and somebody from the crowd yells out, "You're a Judas!" Which is crazy. You know, Judas is the one that, you know, turned up on Jesus like that. And I'm like, wow, that's a crazy comparison. That's a crazy, you know, thing to say. But what does he do? He turns around. And this is my next impression. He turns around and he leans into the microphone and he goes, I don't believe you. That's my best Bob Dylan impression I can do. I don't believe you. He says, I don't believe you. She says, you're a Judas. He said, I don't believe you. Wow. Wow, that whole thing's baller. Wow, that whole thing's like really knowing who you are and standing on that. That's sexy. There's nothing more sexy than that to me. I think I'm gonna wrap this up. But I'm gonna leave you with another idea that I might get into more on the next episode. But I've been thinking about this, and it ties into a little bit about like my belief system and myself, and why I feel so hell-bent on seeing the world, meeting new people, and following my passions and my dreams. Those three things really stem from this certain way of thinking that I've been going about recently. And I remember hearing this, and I always do better, like, in metaphors. You know, when I hear a story and I can gather the lesson from the story, I feel like I do better than somebody just saying, here's the lesson. So I think there's a scene in The Matrix that is super important, and it's kind of like the way that I'm seeing life right now. How I was telling you, you know, whatever it is you believe in, God, some divine power or whatever, you know, wherever we came from, you know, I believe we came from somewhere. So let's say it's up here, right? Say we're all a part of the same little energy source that's up, you know, some place we're not able to see, right? And we're all these powerful, like, soul beings or whatever, and we're just up here vibing and chilling and everything's cool, whatever. After a bit, you might say, well, I wonder what it's like to experience pain. You know, I wonder what it's like to experience, like, heartbreak or joy in its, like, most natural form. I wonder what it's like to feel excitement. I wonder what it's like to feel all these human emotions. And maybe that's what all this is. You know, I don't know. I'm not gonna pretend to have the answers. And if you come in the comment section talking to me about you know anything for a fact, stop. No, you don't. Just tell me what you believe and move on. Stop stating things for a fact. I'm telling you what I believe, and I'm gonna move on. But we know nothing for a fact. That being said, I'd like to believe that we were all souls, and we didn't necessarily have the ability to have these human experiences. So the divine, God, whatever, said, hey, you know what's a real trip? I wipe your memory and I send you down to this place called Earth. There, you live as a human. Through this, you grow. You're able to experience all these things. Your soul grows. You learn perspectives. You do this, that, and the other, right? Doesn't that sound fun? Do you want to do that? And then I'm sitting here as a soul going, yeah, dude, that'd be cool. I wouldn't mind that. You know, like, we're eternal beings. What's 60, 80 years to me? You know? So then, boop, your soul gets popped into some vessel. And that's where we're at now. On this physical world, you know? Now, that's a background to say that in The Matrix, there's a scene where Neo knows he's in the Matrix. He realizes that he's a part of this creation, this created world now. And he's sitting down next to the Oracle, right? I don't think she's got a name in the movie. I think they just refer to her as the Oracle. Well, the Oracle reaches out and offers him a piece of candy, and he goes, well, does it matter if you know that I'm already gonna take the piece of candy? Something along the lines of that. Like, what's the point in me even making a choice if you already know what I'm going to choose? And the Oracle says, maybe the point isn't the choice. Maybe you're here to understand why you chose it. So, I say that to say, maybe we all chose to come down to Earth, and the point of all this is to figure out why we came here and chose this life. Now, I understand where that's gonna sound abstract to some people, but I'm not trying to, like, mess up anybody's day here. Just hear me out. Just come along for the ride. And now I'm sitting here thinking, well, say that's the case. Why did I make the choice to be here? And I'll tell you, I didn't make the choice to be here to work for 40 years and enjoy the back half. You know, I'm not here, I'm not a back nine golfer. I'm gonna give it my all the whole 18 holes. You know, I'm not gonna, nothing. We're not saving gas for the end. I'm you, dale das, papi. Dale das. And that means give it gas. Let it go. Leave your mark. You know, that's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to play anything safe. I'm not here to not, you know, I'm here to grow. So that's my intention. I'm gonna write down some more things, and we'll probably pop into that more in the next episode. If you happen to tune into this episode, I really appreciate it. It's 45 minutes. We are at the 45-minute mark, and that is crazy that I can even talk that long with nobody else here. So I appreciate anybody that is checking out this episode, anybody that has checked out the previous episode or has given any love to the channel. There will be new projects coming soon. It will not just be this. Like I said, the interview whatever project that I want to work on will be coming to this channel as well. I will be re-uploading my stand-up clips onto this channel, so everything's all under one sort of umbrella. I've got short films coming. You'll see them when they're ready. Writing skits, writing short films, working on a sitcom about the place that I work at. Like, the juices are flowing. I'm very excited for everybody to see where this goes from here. I'm excited for myself to see where it goes from here. And I appreciate any and all support. Thank you very much, and have a blessed day.